Hello, welcome to another, or our first ever retro game review of Fighter's History. This is a game made by Data East ever since 1994, and it's a very straightforward Street Fighter 2-esque game. The game itself was an arcade game, and it was on the Neo Geo and Neo Geo CD as well as the SNES one, which I'm reviewing now. There is a future installment called Fighter's History Dynamite, but I'm not reviewing that because I don't technically have a Neo Geo game system. And it only really includes 2 additional characters, which, in general, there's pretty okay-ish. Now, the game engine itself is very standard Street Fighter 2-esque. And in general, there's not much to be said. You have your standard Hadokens, your Shoryukens, some flash kicks. Maybe there's some unique ones, like you could say that the Aura from the Frenchy dude named Jean in this game. But one of the more interesting things about this game is that there's a unique stun system. The stun system happens when you hit a fighter's weak point repeatedly. And as it keeps gaining damage, it flashes repeatedly until you break that item. Much like in Soul Calibur, you can actually remove their armor by hitting that certain area repeatedly. Once the item is broken, they will be stunned, in which you can physically do whatever combo that you can set up and just destroy them with. It makes it a lot easier to know when you're getting stunned and what moves have better stunning capabilities than in Street Fighter 2, where it's pretty random. Yeah! Also, the characters seem to jump quite a bit higher, and it's a bit floatier in terms of gameplay, in terms of jumps, but everything else is pretty standard Street Fighter affair, as you can expect from any sort of Street Fighter game. The characters themselves are pretty standard cookie cutter. The game itself, in terms of storyline, is pretty standard. You have a fighting tournament, and they're there for their own reasons, much like in Street Fighter 2, they're very standard affairs. Whether it's the reason is for revenge or they want to be the very best like no one ever was. The characters themselves, well, you have Mizoguchi, who's pretty much a Ryu of sorts. He has his tattoos, he has his fireballs, he has his semi-pseudo Shoryukens. They're not really true Shoryukens because he doesn't jump in the air. You have Samche, the Thai boxer, who is pretty much Sagat. You have Ray, who's pretty much a Guile character, except the only difference is he's not a charged character. So you can imagine he plays a bit more like Terry Bogard in that respect. There's also other slew of characters too, like Lee, who's basically a Yan, and I could go on and on and on. One of the more different characters, however, is Ryuko, who's a judo grappler. She plays pretty much just like any grappler, except the fact that she does judo and she's actually a much smaller character than the rest of the cast. I'm not sure how hitbox-wise that would work, but maybe perhaps a lot of things don't quite hit her as easily as some of the other characters. But her controls are pretty much same standard 360 affairs. The music is pretty standard. You got your regular hits, you got your regular punches that sound off in the game. Some of the music in this game you kind of scratch your head on, including Mizoguchi's stage, which kind of sounds like a really weird remix of Ryu's theme. Sometimes it makes you wonder whether they were kind of thinking about or looking into Street Fighter 2 that much. And then we also got some stages which pretty much sound very typical Chinese, Japanese affairs. And that's pretty much what the music is in this game. It's kind of unmemorable. Graphically, this game looks pretty much just like a Street Fighter 2 game. I would definitely say it's a lot better than a lot of fighting games of that time, because a lot of the fighting games at this time kind of just simply made simple sprites and they had them fight out and just slapped on the label of tournament fighter. However, this is a game, it feels very much like a fighting game which has the same quality as Street Fighter, even if it does skimp on some qualities like the music, as I said earlier, and maybe some of the originality of the characters themselves. But I do feel like there was some effort put into this game, and I have to give them credit that they came up with something that looks not too bad, I would say. Control-wise, this game plays pretty much like Street Fighter 2, as I said before. They have your standard 6-button affairs. Even though this is actually a Neo Geo game, for the Super Nintendo particularly, you have your light, medium, heavy punch and kick buttons, the very standard things. They all pretty much operate the same way, not one punch. Your light doesn't look like your heavy, like in some certain really bad tournament fighters. They all look as they should. Modes and option-wise, you have your survival, your CPU battle, and your versus. Your pretty standard fighting game modes. Nothing much outside of that. So the only really fun things about this game in terms of outside of the fighting is pretty minimal. You can just do your versus and just challenge your friends what you can do outside of single player. Competitiveness, well, I can't say much about this game because I haven't seen people really play this game much. I have seen people on YouTube actually play this game competitively. And I've seen quite a few players that play Mizoguchi and Marstorius. Perhaps they're top tier. I can't say much for sure, but in general, just kind of playing around with this game a little bit, I would say it's no character is excessively powerful over the other. I would say there's some pretty standard, oh, okay, maybe this can be exploited more than the other, but generally speaking, it's a pretty well made. Learning curve wise, this game is pretty simple. If you're new to fighting games, this would be a pretty fun game to actually start off and experiment with. One of the things that's a bit easier about this game in terms of playing commands with these characters is there's no shoryuken motions. You heard me, there's barely any shoryuken motions in this game, so in fact, you can actually play a lot of these characters without having to learn how to do a shoryuken or charge that much, because there's only maybe one or two characters that really do a charge move in this game. And there aren't really that many moves outside of that. Overall, this game is pretty good, actually. It's not the best game out there, not the most original either. However, the fact that it's really easily approachable, much like Street Fighter 2, has some pretty good qualities to it. I would say give it a shot. Who knows? Maybe you'll end up playing this game on your game nights one day with friends. I give this game a 7 out of 10.